Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do a Friday Reads where I wrap up the week in reading. It's not a good week in reading. We'll get to it when we do the actual Friday Reads. But there have been some developments in the bookish world and I have some exciting things coming up for the channel. So, that's something at least. We'll get to the Friday Reads a little later. The big book thing that happened this week is that the Women's Prize announced the nonfiction shortlist. I did a reaction video. I'll have it linked down below if you have not seen it. We have a bit of a lull in terms of book prizes, but we really don't. There's a lot going on with book prizes right now. We will get the shortlist for the International Booker on April 9th. And then we have a little bit of a lull until the end of April when we get the shortlist for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And the big bookish award news, for me at least, is that the Pulitzer is coming on May 6th. For some reason, I had written it down as May 8th on my cheat sheet. It's not May 8th. It's May 6th. I think it was May 8th last year. It's May 6th this year. So that's coming. And I finally managed to film my Pulitzer Prize predictions video. Usually by this point in the year, I have it published and it's just, everything has been a mess. Everything has been a mess. So I haven't been able to do it, but I managed to film it yesterday. So I'm filming this on Friday. I managed to film it on Thursday, get half of it edited before the end of the day on Thursday, and then I managed to edit the other half of it this morning. It's an hour long. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. You can watch as much or as little of it as you would like. I decided instead of waiting until Monday, I am going to schedule it for Sunday. So if you are watching this video on Saturday, the day that it is released, you're going to get a video tomorrow. If you're watching this on Sunday, it's posted. Go find it. Time means nothing on the internet. So it will be posted. Again, watch as much or as little as you want to. You can skip right to the actual prediction at the end if you don't want to go through all of the contenders. That's fine. That's totally fine. It is what it is. It's a labor of love for me every year. I love doing it, even though it terrifies me. So it'll be interesting to see what you think of it and to get that out into the world. I will have timestamps in it so you can go through the different categories or just jump to the predictions. I'm excited to share it with you. I've been getting a lot of questions about where it is since I usually have it posted by now, but you'll have it and I'm really excited to share it. And so stay tuned for that. And that is really the big thing, other than the fact that if you remember, I did a reaction video to the Atlantic's article about the great American novels. Brian at Bookish did a reaction to that video where he listed his selections for the great American novel. I'll have a link to that video in the description box down below. It is interesting. Still no love for To Kill a Mockingbird. I would put To Kill a Mockingbird in my list of great American novels, but I didn't make a list right now. I had thought about doing my own list. I admit I'm a little more intrigued by an idea from Jacqueline McMenamin, who's a commenter, who suggested that I should do a video about recent books that I think could go on to be classics. Because one of the big difficulties with the Atlantic's list is that the recent picks, I am not convinced the way they are that those books will go on to be classics or that people will remember them. So I feel like I was intrigued by the idea of making my own list of recent books that will probably be classics. And I think I'm going to work on that for some time in April. Stay tuned for it. I haven't barely even started. I think I wrote down 2 books so far that I have ideas for. So if you have suggestions about books, I think I'm going to limit it to the last 10 to 15 years. I haven't really decided yet. But if you have a book that you think will go on to be a classic that is published within the last 10 to 15 years, let me know in the comment section down below, because I am planning to do a video about that at some point in the month of April. So I'd love to hear what you think would potentially be a classic in the future. With that, I think we're ready to get to the Friday Reads portion of this video, which again is it's not great. So I had started, or was like just on the verge of starting. I feel like I had started both books that I'm still reading and had barely gotten into them at all, and I'm still not done with either one of them. Let's talk about the print book first. That is Last Stories by William Trevor. This is a short story collection, obviously, by William Trevor, who is Irish. If you remember, in the month of March, I wanted to read Irish authors and Irish books because I'm going to be going to Ireland and Scotland in the month of May. And William Trevor is Irish. William Trevor is also considered to be a master of the short story form, and I like short stories. I'm a defender of short stories because I know a lot of people are not into them, and that's fine. I think I have a great deal of respect for William Trevor. The way he can turn a phrase in this book is pretty astonishing. There are observations and perceptions and shifts in tone and phrasing that are so beautiful that it almost stops you in your tracks and you're like, wow, how did he do that? And that is really interesting. I admit, though, I'm not as in love with the stories as I am in love with the way he writes and the amount of skill that he is able to show off in these stories. So I'm nearly done. I will manage to finish this before the end of March, so I will be able to put this down in the record as something that I read during the month, but I don't know that I'm going to get anything else in during the month of March, because let's talk about the audio. I feel like everybody's going to be really disappointed. I had been just starting Milkman by Anna Burns when we last spoke in a Friday Reads video, and I have really not made a lot of progress at all over the week. And every time I sort of started to listen to it, I would almost immediately say, I'm not in the mood for this right now. So I would just kind of turn it off. And I know there are a lot of fans of this book. I think the big problem is that I am really not in the mood for Milkman right now. And I'm a bit of a mood reader. I can't force myself to be in the mood for something if I'm not in the mood for it. Like, just because I told myself I'm going to read this right now doesn't mean I'm going to be able to, force myself to say, all right, well, it doesn't matter if you're not in the mood for it. You got to do it. You got to do it. So it's not working. And I think part of the problem is that I've read a couple of heavy books in the month of March. So let's kind of review. We'll get to my March wrap-up with Joel, hopefully sometime soon. But I have read The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien, which is a serious book. I read Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, which is funny, but also extremely serious. And a lot of people have said to me in comments and in real life, oh, I didn't really think that was a funny book. Now I feel like I should read it. And to be fair, I don't know how much the humor comes across if you're reading the book in print, but if you are listening to the audio that Frank McCourt reads, the humor really shines. So I don't know if you'd have the same experience with the sense of humor in Angela's Ashes that I did if you were reading it in print. You might have to look for it yourself. But just wanted to throw that out there. But so, The Country Girls, serious. Angela's Ashes, serious. Before that, I read Twisted by Emma Dabiri, which, is not serious in the same way, but is about a very serious topic. And then Last Stories by William Trevor, serious. Milkman by Anna Burns, serious. So I feel like my soul is crying out for something a little bit lighter, not just because I've had a bunch of like heavier, serious books in a row, but because work has been a little bit crazy. There has been stress, to be honest, over the last week or two. And that, on top of the fact that I've been reading some serious books, has made me feel like I need something lighter. So, back to Milkman. I really thought long and hard yesterday about what I'm going to do with Milkman, because at this point I'm not going to finish it before before the end of the month. And either I need to carry it into April and hope that I manage to pick up my pace with it, or I put it down. And at first I was like, I can't put it down. So many people have been happy that I was giving it a try, and I feel like I should persevere, because so many people have loved this book and they were really excited that I was reading it. And then I mentioned this to someone and they said, if you're not enjoying it, what are you doing? And it reminded me of my channel name, Supposedly Fun. Like, this is supposed to be fun. So I'm going to put it down. And then once I decided I'm going to put it down, it had to be a decision about, is this a hard DNF or is it a DNF for now? And I think it's just a DNF for now, because there are aspects of the book that I found intriguing. I think part of the problem also is that the first chapter really got my attention when it was talking about your unnamed protagonist and Milkman, and how him sort of attaching himself to her and almost stalking her created the sense of gossip, and then people started looking at her, and it seems like a book that is very much about gossip, but gossip in a state where it is weaponized because of the way the government is working and misinformation and all of that stuff. It's kind of inspired by the Troubles in Ireland, but that is fascinating. That chapter really got my attention, and I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be an incredible book. And then the second chapter almost completely lost my attention. And I mentioned that in my last video, and it doesn't seem like a lot of people had the same experience, but I definitely did. Like, the second chapter, I just really was not into it at all, as it detoured away from Milkman and more toward Maybe Boyfriend and the third brother-in-law and first brother-in-law. I didn't find that anywhere near as interesting. It felt a little bit heavy-handed in parts, like when it talks about Maybe Boyfriend getting a car part, and it felt like the thing about gossip and the danger of people talking and people observing and, you know, ratting you out on other people felt much more obvious in that chapter than it did in the one with Milkman. And then the third chapter I started, but didn't get very far into it. And it does sort of have a return of Milkman, but after the second chapter, I just really couldn't get myself back into the book. And every time I've thought about picking it back up and listening again, I'm just like, I really don't want to. And I think part of that is that all of my momentum just stopped in the second chapter. And again, part of it is just that it's been a couple of heavy, serious books in a row. And then part of it is just general stress about, you know, life, work, and the world in general. So I'm going to put it down. I don't think I'm going to pick it back up before we go to Ireland and Scotland. Maybe when we get back, maybe next year. I don't know. I definitely don't think I'm going to end up reading it before we go to Ireland, because there's not that much time before we go. So it's just not likely to happen. And I know a lot of people were excited that I had picked up Milkman. I did make a good faith effort to try to force myself to get back into it, and I just couldn't. And I don't think it's necessarily the book's fault. I have this standing sort of rule where I don't count a book as something that I'm reading unless or until I am 50 pages into it if I'm reading the print book. And usually I go by 15% if I'm listening to an audio, especially if it's a longer audio like Milkman is. So the thing is, because I was trying to get myself going, I did cross the 15% threshold, and I almost stopped before I did, because I thought, but if I don't cross the threshold, then I don't count it as something that I was reading. But I kept trying because I had mentioned it in a Friday Reads and people were so excited. So I felt like I had to, and I sort of dragged myself over that 15% threshold, and then I didn't want to keep going. So I'm sorry. I did make an effort. It's not really a fault of the book, although I will say, again, my attention and sense of interest just crashed when we got to that second chapter, I just didn't find the interactions between maybe boyfriend, first brother-in-law, and third brother-in-law anywhere near as interesting as the one with Milkman. But that first chapter was incredible. So I would like to get back to it at some point, but probably not until later this year at the earliest. So we'll see. We'll see. And I mean, I've read enough that I would say it feels like Milkman is a book that would potentially be a classic in the future. So that is one of the books that I did note down. Spoiler alert. But it's, yeah, we'll see. I'll get back to it. It's a DNF for now. I don't know when I will get back to it, but just not going to happen right now. So I'm going to make a good faith effort to finish Last Stories this weekend. That should be totally doable. And then that's probably going to be a wrap on March, which was not a great reading month for me, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when I do my wrap up with Joel, and we'll see how that goes. I have already been thinking about what I want to do next. So my loose plan for April, I'll talk about this a little more when I do my March wrap up with Joel. But my loose plan for April was to try to read some Scottish books because, I spent March reading a couple of Irish books. We're also going to Scotland, so I'd want to get some Scottish authors in, but I also want to catch up on a couple of books before the Pulitzer Prize is announced on May 6th. So I'll have a more defined list when we do our March reading wrap up, but I think I want to start with one or two of the Pulitzer books because there's one, I don't know why I'm being coy. I can just tell you, I think I'm going to put down Milkman and I'm going to pick up Chain Gang All-Stars on audio. Now, I don't know if that's going to fly. The reason I was a little hesitant to say it is that I've heard, it's a very violent book. So if that starts to stress me out, it probably won't work either. So maybe my best bet is actually to listen to something a little more cinnamon bun calming and sort of center myself a little bit before diving into Chain Gang All-Stars. So, I put it out there and I was afraid to do that because of what happened with Milkman last week, but I'll just say it. And then if I'd end up not doing Chain Gang All-Stars, you know why at this point, because there's a chance it will just stress me out the way a lot of other things have been this week. So, but that's kind of one of the books that I would like to read before they announce the Pulitzer Prize. And again, my predictions are coming. So I talk about Chain Gang All-Stars in that video. So I'll leave it for the video. But that's what's going on. And then I think once I finish Last Stories, a lot depends on how I'm feeling mentally, emotionally by the end of the weekend. Some of the books that I immediately felt like I would pick up to start April are feeling a little heavy again right now. And I just don't know if I'm going to be up for that. So I might look for something a little bit fun, sassy, cinnamon bun, comforting, all of that, and just let that start off the month of April because I feel like I need a bit of a change of pace. I've really enjoyed reading Irish books and Irish authors in the month of March. I wish I had managed to read more, but we'll talk about that more in my wrap up. But I stumbled into some serious books in a row and need to break out of that cycle right now for my own benefit. So that is how my week has gone. I'd love to hear how your week has gone, what you've been up to. Top Chef is back, and I'm really excited about that. It's the first season without Padma Lakshmi as host, and there have been 2 episodes so far, and Kristen Kish, who was a competitor and who won the season in Seattle, I want to say that was season 10, but don't quote me on that, is the new host, and I think she's been doing a great job. So that's been my big obsession lately. I wish we had more episodes, but that would be dangerous because I would probably end up binging them, but I've been enjoying that. Glad to have Top Chef back. So that has been my week. I'd love to hear what you've been up to, what you have been reading, watching, loving. Again, stay tuned for my Pulitzer Prize predictions. They will be coming the day after this video posts, but again, time means nothing on the internet. So by the time you watch this, they may already be out there. And then I'll have my book haul for March coming next week as well. And, all kinds of good, fun stuff. Hopefully you agree. So stay tuned for all of that. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, Happy reading.